So my faith is Islam. I'm Muslim, and this is extremely important to me. First off, I'll give you my background. So I'm a Muslim American Palestinian. I grew up with knowing only Muslims and Palestinians. Came here when I was 8. So I went to public school, got to know Christians and Americans very well, became close friends, and it's hard to hate somebody you know. And then an interesting turn was I started working for a company owned by Jews. So the company I worked for is owned by, I still work for, is owned by Jews. Treated me very well. I was never discriminated against. I got to know lots of Jews working there and broke bread with lots of Jews. And again, it's hard to hate someone you know, and it's on both sides. So it's hard for them. They know I'm Palestinian. It's hard for them to hate me once they know me. And it's hard for me to hate them. And I think breaking bread with somebody, getting to know someone, would make this world a much happier, more peaceful place. And that is why it's important to me.
I think with all of the terrorism that we're unfortunately getting used to, that there's too much of an emphasis on the fact that it's because of Islam, because of all these Muslims that were all around us. And of course it's ridiculous, because as a Jewish person who knows very little about religion in general, I know that Islam is a faith of peace, just like Judaism is a faith of peace. And I like to see people dialogue with each other and have events like this, so we are not as narrow-minded and prejudiced as we might be without it. That's all.
I'm Christian. And first I'm going to say tell you the word that I said when I walked out of there. I turned to the person next to me and I said, wow. And that's the way I feel about these discussions. That's the only way we're going to learn. We're going to learn that the news isn't necessarily right, and we don't keep pointing fingers. Just meeting the women. I was saying hello to a woman I met last time, and the women aren't kowtowed to. You've always felt that they were looked down upon and very submissive and didn't talk. And you get to know people as people. So I think these are wonderful.
Oh yeah, I'm a Muslim. So and I just think like avenues like this give us opportunities to clear the misconceptions that we have in our society. So this is my first one actually, and I've really gained a lot. You know, it gives me an opportunity to appreciate people for who they are. You know, and treat them just like I would love to be treated. And you know, I think things like this, it's a good avenue to do that.
And would you recommend this to your friends?
Definitely. The next one, I'll be coming with my family, like everybody. Yeah, sure. I would definitely recommend this for everybody.
Because it brings us as leaders together. My name is Jamal Garbi. I am the president of the Islamic Association of North Texas in Richardson. We have had these dialogues for years, and as early as like 20 years ago. Unfortunately, we start and we stop. I think the key thing is to continue the work, because this kind of work, the interfaith work, bring us as leaders together, and it brings us our families together and also our congregation together. And once we see the value, then it can radiate to a bigger and bigger circle. I love the forum. You were the moderator today. It was very nice. It was done with respect, character, which is very, very nice. And that's how things need to be. In the past, it was more like preaching. They touched today on very contemporary issues that are important to all of us, all faith. And as you can tell, we have more in common than what we disagree on. And I'm very happy. I commend you. I commend the leadership of this group, Rabbi Hanan and Doug Skinner is a friend of mine. In fact, we were doing the interfaith dialogue for probably 20 years ago, as far as I can remember. So I hope this good work can continue. And may God bless these efforts, bless these places of worship that can bring us together so we can impact our hearts, our minds, our families, our city, our society, and the world. Because good work to me radiates. It doesn't stop.
Right.
Negative work, you know what it does. And I'm very, very optimistic, and I'm very thankful. And I meant it when I opened our religious institution, which is the Islamic Association of North Texas, for the next gathering. And we'd love to participate.
And why is interfaith dialogue important to you in programs like this? Why is it important to you?
Well, I think it's important to me because it's the one way to learn about the different faiths that are out there. It's the one way to separate yourself from any outside, opinions, or to really get it directly from an imam or a rabbi or a pastor, to get your answers truly answered. So this is why this is important to me.
Very good. And your faith tradition is?
Muslim.
You're a Muslim.
Yes.
And will you invite your friends to the next one?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Because I think all peoples are important and all religions are important, and we need to understand one another and love one another. And I also do it to, support one another as Americans, as Christians or Muslims or Jews. I think all of us have our place in this world, and we all love God. And I think we have maybe more similarities than differences.
Well, I've traveled the world, and I understand that people are people all over the world. I don't think there's enough of that, and I think interfaith is an outstanding way to promote world peace, even if it's just a small bit at a time. Let's keep the dialogue open.
And why would you recommend programs like these to your friends?
What do you mean? I'm going to bring my friends the next time. They all need to see it. This is important for all of us.
And your background, your religious background is?
I'm Jewish, and I was, from the time I was born, I knew I was. It suits me well.
I'm Muslim. Yeah.
And why are interfaith dialogue events such as these important to you? And why is interfaith dialogue important to you?
For me personally, I feel like as a Muslim, Islam is one of the most misunderstood religions in the world, and through interfaith dialogue, I feel like we can dispel stereotypes and dispel misconceptions that others have about Islam. At the same time, I can learn more about Christians and Jews and just learn from each other.
And why would you bring some friends to maybe the next one?
I definitely really enjoyed this one. I learned a lot. I loved how the Reverend Doug he mentioned that Muslim extremists, the similarities, Muslim extremists are like the Oklahoma bomber, for example, to Christians. And I loved how he defended Muslims. And I also learned a lot from Rabbi Hanan. He always brings up. I know very little about Judaism. As I know a lot about Christianity, I know very little about Judaism, and I always learn a lot from Rabbi Hanan. And I definitely think a lot of my friends would also learn a lot and benefit from this program. So that's why.
I think it's very simple, because we think we know what you think, but we're wrong. And you think you know what we think, but you're wrong. And the only way we can solve that problem is to learn directly from each other, and instead of Jews getting together and talking about what Christians and Muslims believe, we need to find out directly.
And your background is? Religious background?
I'm Jewish.
Of course you are. I saw that in the back of your head. So why would you bring your friends to an event like this, to programs like this?
So that they can learn directly from the horse's mouth, instead of continuing in misconceptions that they learn from their friends.
What is your religious tradition?
What do you think? If you were to look at me on the street, you would...
I don't know. You could be... You're not wearing a yarmulke.
Yeah, right. So... No.
But, I mean, you could be Jewish, Christian, Muslim.
Exactly. And that,
right.
And so, I'm Muslim.
Okay.
And so, and the point is, it wasn't me trying to challenge you or anything like that. But the fact is that, you know, me walking down the street or something like that, I kind of blend easier in society than say my female counterparts who stand out. And so things like this, where we can come together and really learn from one another and understand the other side and so on and so forth, it helps break down, you know, the barriers and the stereotypes that we all have about each other. So a lot of people, when they think of a Muslim male, you know, they think of what's portrayed on the news and stuff like that, and you have, you know, the quintessential guy with the turban or the beards and you know, the long robes and whatnot. But that's not me, and that's actually most Muslim men probably don't ascribe to that sort of dress code or style. So people are sometimes surprised when I talk to them, and they're surprised to know that I'm Muslim. They're like, oh, well, you look just like me, and you don't have an accent, and you know, you think just like every other American. And it's just, that's the whole point, that, you know, that living in this country, being born and raised in this country, and living the American experiment, where we have this melting pot and this melding of religions and cultures and thought processes, is really just what's just makes this country great. And I'll summarize with this: is I think, given the political climate in the United States and the world, really, on how some certain people are viewed and traditions are viewed, it's amazing to know that in the United States really is the only place where you could find over a dozen or 24 Muslims praying inside of a synagogue. They're you know, one of their 5 daily prayers. And to me, that was just absolutely awesome. And kudos for you guys hosting this kind of stuff. And I look forward to the next, and hopefully I'll you know, we'll have a packed house again.
So I got to ask you a question. Why is it important for you to blend? I'm going to key in on that question.
Sure. Not so much that it's important for me to blend, but it just happens to be so. However, by blending in or you know, being just like my neighbor or just like my coworker, you know, it really really sums up what Islam teaches, and what really the U.S. is all about, is that in Islam, you know, you're taught to, you know, follow certain traditions, and you're taught to follow and pray in a certain way. But you're also taught to respect the lay of the, you know, the law of the land and the traditions of the people that are around you. So being that you know, like I said, in the United States, our culture is a mashup of every culture from around the world. Where else am I going to be able to go down the street when I'm hungry and have Chinese food, Indian food, kosher food, what have you? You can't have that anywhere else in the United States. Anywhere else in the world. You can't go down the street and talk to your Sikh neighbor who may, you know, have, you know, the turban and grow his hair out and things like that. You wouldn't find that in say Egypt, where my parents come from. So blending in isn't necessarily so much an important thing, but I think it's just it goes along with where we live and how we grow up, or how I grew up at least, and it just makes it easier to break down those barriers, right? So it's easier for someone when they find out I'm Muslim. Well, they may feel more comfortable to talk to me, and they're like, okay, well, maybe he's not as traditionalist, or he's not a foreigner or what have you. He's just like me, and I could probably talk to that guy and strike up a conversation with him. So.